Can you show us some of the products? And I'm looking at the ones right behind you here.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Can you show us some of these? And I'm also interested in how, as you mentioned, Shaw is in a lot of different types of products, hard and soft, and how they work together.
Well, what we do is, again, as we travel, we talk to a lot of our dealers, we talk to a lot of interior designers, and we have some great relationships out there of people that are just very design savvy and flooring savvy that give us great ideas. Internally, we have this incredibly talented design staff and the technical staff that work hand in hand to say, here's what we can do. This is, here's a creative idea, and the technical person helps us accomplish that all the way through to production. So the design opportunities are greater now. When I say design opportunities for what visuals we can create in carpet, they're greater than they ever have been. So it's an exciting time. So when you look at some of the things that we've developed, to be able to tuft carpet with where you actually outline the pattern in the color, whether it's through light and a deep dye or actually two different colors of yarn, that is exciting for us to be able to do that. So there have been investments made in different tufting equipment, but we're in a really rich area as far as the companies, even outside of our own, that are creating these tufting machines and all the different technologies. So many innovations are happening that give us such great freedom to come up with some really cool visuals.
I've talked with several of the people that design these machines that come up with the technology, and they tell me that they'll go out to the Shaws and the others, and these are the people that tweak the machines and have them doing things and producing products that I don't think the machine people even envisioned when they put the machinery together.
It's like a little bit of magic happens, but it's a really fortunate thing. Again, it all comes down to having great relationships with our vendors, with our partners in this industry, to be able to come up with things. And again, it may not even be something that they intended. It might be just a wonderful, nice little surprise that they didn't expect to come up with.
So if somebody hasn't thought of some of these patterns and designs and styles over the last several years, that's really changed, and there's really newer, hotter products now than ever, really.
I can think back to 2007, and that was probably when we last talked, when we launched Inspire Spaces. And that was a new Anso pattern collection. And that was a big year for us. We had just invested in this tufting machine that gave us up to 216 different pile height differences. So we had a zebra pattern, a crocodile pattern, and it had a really dimensional element to it. And that was a big change for us to be able to offer that in LCLs. At that point, one of our challenges to the development team and to our R&D teammates, we asked, at what point can we outline patterns, just as you would if you were painting? And so it's been, every year from 2007, each year we've been inching towards that as our goal. So when we look at it today and you look back in hindsight, you think it's really kind of cool that has happened. But it's about these relationships and about challenging one another, whether it's the tufting machine companies or the R&D people or the technical people or the creative people. We're kind of constantly challenging one another.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Can you show us some of these?
Sure.
Now that you said all this, I can't wait to see them.
Yeah. Well, we have some really cool things to show you. Just right behind me, you'll see some of the patterns that...
Okay. Well, let's do this. Let me get over there.
Yeah.
We'll just break here for a second.
Well, one of the things that we do love to talk about when we're doing our travel and our research and discussing trends, we love to talk about and zero in on patterns, because we feel like that's a really good way for consumers to express her own design or her style in her home. And as we do research, one of the things that we like to collect are images, fabrics, samples, pictures of the most relevant, important patterns or visuals that we see at the different markets and shows, and faux bois being one of those that we've been talking about for quite some time. So as you look at the faux bois trend, and that means false wood, so it's like a wood grain trend, how do you reflect that in patterns? So that was our challenge to our design team, that they were able to do in such a beautiful way with this particular product called Natural Art. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we've asked over the years, how can we better define pattern? Not just by pile height differences, but by dyeing or different color of yarns. And so this was one of those opportunities that we had to really express that creatively. So natural art in the Caress collection was one of those opportunities. So you can see some of the subtle heathering, but you also can see the actual pattern itself. And so through this color point technology, that's something that gave us that design freedom. Beyond that, we also have a lot of great looking patterns that we've been able to create with more contrast. So you can see here where we actually have two different colors of yarn. So we have a long space dye yarn that offers that subtle striation. And so of course at all the different European markets and shows, we've seen so many visuals that are distressed, time-worn. And of course we don't make time-worn products, and we aren't going to wash them and beat them and lay them out to dry in the parking lot here at Shaw for 90 days. However, what we can do is come up with a long space dye that recreates that visual in a really beautiful way. So here you can see one of the products that we launched this past year called Surface Impressions. And you can see the different, just the very subtle striations in these long tea stain yarns. So again, if we take these, this is 100%, so you see the solid. And if you see how it's reflected here in some of these other products and patterns, then again the effect is really nice. So you get a nice design aesthetic where you can see just the subtle striations. Again, it's just another way to express a design or an aesthetic where we haven't been able to in the past.
I like the patterns. A lot of times you think of patterns that are dramatically contrasting, and these are very subtle, and I think that people would more easily buy that. It would seem to me, where it's not bold, it's subtle.
I think their comfort level is definitely there when we have subtle contrast. The higher contrast, I think it's a little more of a stretch. So where we have found some nice surprises, some of the nice surprises, again, I'll speak to Caress and the patterns that we did in Caress, Stylish Art. That is one that has a nice pattern that's a little bit more of an OG pattern. And I can show you the fuller piece in a minute, but you can see just the contrast between the light and the deep. And again, the effect is really nice and subtle, and it's attainable for a consumer to look at it. They can look at it and more easily envision that. But we thought of all the patterns, this was going to be a little bit of the stretch. It's going to be that design statement that might bring them into the display, but they might go to a smaller scale pattern. And Stylish Art, which is this one, has become one of the best sellers of all the patterns.
Interesting.
Yeah, we love that she loves design, so she surprised us with that.
I was going to ask you, is it difficult to get some salespeople to pay more attention to pattern, even if it's very, very subtle pattern?
The salespeople is in the retail environment?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think what might have happened in the past, where people might have been playing it safe, that might have been those scenarios where they chose something small or solid. And I think now we're in this era where people aren't flipping their homes. We're seeing people make more of a personal design statement in their homes, and we see a little bit more where the consumer is asking for something that's a little more of a personal choice, not something that's generic that they think, oh, when I sell this house in a year.
Yeah, yeah.
This, again, is one of those patterns that I mentioned earlier we thought would be kind of a stretch. But again, we thought it would be eye-catching, and it has sold really well. Stylish Art in the Caress collection. So it's soft and also just really subtle. But it's a definite larger scale pattern and is very directional, but it's beautiful installed. So I think through the photography, for the sales associate to have more of a comfort level now, it's been out in the market almost a year and a half. And so they're finding that consumers do want a little more pattern.
It looks very traditional too, I think, too. So.
Well, this is an ancient textile, right? An ancient textile pattern. So if you flip open any book from, textile classes that I took and that we all talk about and study, you can find this. It's
So,
timeless.
so do you think that's a trend? Are we gonna see more and more pattern goods out in the field? People gonna buy that more? Is that the future of carpet, do you think?
I hope. I think variety is the key, whether it's variety through pattern, variety through different dye, combinations of yarns. But I do think pattern's the easiest, well, easiest after we've come through all these eras, but it's a really good way to differentiate product.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us a little preview of some of the things that may be on your drawing board?
Ooh, well, I will say this. I'll give you a little teaser. What we loved to talk about prior to the Perez collection was just what we had seen at the different European shows and markets. And we have a book that we referenced through our research, which was the Fleece and Fiber book. Mm-hmm. So this coming year, one of the things that we're referencing a lot about is just about color itself. So that's my little teaser.
Okay, so this means I'm going to have to come back and we're going to have to talk again. You're going to have to show me some of this.
You're officially invited back.